Look at this headline from the Daily Express in the UK. Lyon.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So clever. Except it says Lyon Hearts. All right, Manchester United 5-4 finished after extra time. Obviously, all the talk has been about this game, and understandably so. We are going to welcome in Rob Dawson and also Ian Darke to talk more about everything that we did see. But we must start with Rob Dawson because, Rob, you were actually there at Old Trafford yesterday. Tell us more about where it ranks in terms of European nights that you've seen at Old Trafford with Manchester United.
Well, I mean, it's right up there. I've been lucky enough to be in that stadium on those big European nights under the lights at Old Trafford. You know, thinking about Champions League semi-finals against Barcelona when they booked their place in the Champions League final. But honestly, the game against Lyon last night was right up there. I've never, ever seen a finish quite like it, to score 3 goals in the last 7 minutes of extra time when they looked like they were heading out of the Europa League and somehow dragging themselves off the canvas. There were a few left around the press box. At 4-2, when Lyon scored the penalty, a load of United fans had just had enough. And to be honest, who could blame them? Because they'd thrown away such a fantastic position that they were just fed up. And you could see them all streaming out. I think, fortunately, the Bruno penalty to make it 4-3 on the night happened quite quickly. So a load of them got caught on the way to the cars and were able to sort of turn around, hear the roar from the stadium and then sprint all the way back in and catch the ending. But for a few poor fans, they didn't get that, and they were halfway on the way home when they heard that United were level and have nicked it in at the last minute. So it's a memory that they're never, ever going to get back, and I doubt any of those fans who left last night will ever leave a football match early again.
No, absolutely not. Ian, what did you make of it all?
We should never leave any football match early. That so much happens late, but it was bonkers. It was crazy. And, you know, as Rob was saying, it's probably, you know, it's right up there, isn't it, with the greatest matches ever played at Old Trafford. One of the great European matches. I mean, they were all talking about remontada, comeback for Real Madrid this week. Well, it happened in Manchester for Manchester United. You have to say you were pleased, really, for Ruben Amorim and everything that he's gone through since he arrived there. It's been a really difficult season, but they certainly gave the United fans something to smile about.
Absolutely. On the subject of Ruben Amorim, what does it do for him, Stevie, with the fans after it's been a difficult season, particularly in the league for Manchester United, that he's overseen a night like that? Does that help him and the relationship with the fans?
Oh, 100%. You know, for him, for a change, he'll get some pats in the back. He'll see a lot of smiling faces, and that's huge. You know, he's had a tough time, and it's not all down to him. But he's had a really tough time since he went to United. It has been depression after depression, with a few little bits of light thrown in now and again. But this is a huge piece of light for him. But unfortunately, as I said yesterday, the problem that he and United have is they have to step on the field again, and we're more likely to see the United that we're used to, as opposed to 7 minutes of just sheer drama and sheer European football.
Yeah.
I'll agree. And in that, this is absolutely huge for Amorim, who's not had an awful lot to cheer about, to celebrate since becoming Manchester United manager. But ultimately, especially where Manchester United kind of see themselves, it comes down to where you go from here. Erik ten Hag gave Manchester United fans a lot to cheer about. They beat Manchester City in an FA Cup final. But if you aren't able to build on that, if you aren't able to progress this football club in the way and in the direction that the fans expect, and some of the older fans, I have to say older fans because a few of those younger fans might think about Manchester United or the stories that we tell about Manchester United as some kind of folklore that happened way back when. But if you aren't able to progress this club in the way that those fans remember, and in many ways expect, it all comes for nothing. And that's the challenge, that's the long-term challenge for Amorim here.
Will that help him, Rob?
I think so. I mean, it certainly helps him in the short term because he's been talking quite a lot about building a connection between the team and the fans. He's felt that the fans have been a little bit disconnected with the team and the players because of some of the poor results that they've had. And obviously, you know, in Premier League terms, this is going to be their worst ever season. So he's been very, very keen to kind of give the fans something to shout about. I think in the long term, he will look at that game, in the cold light of day and be slightly worried, because the result only happened and the ending only happened because Man United essentially are deeply flawed. 2-0 up at half time in the second leg of a Europa League quarter-final. United should have been good enough to close that game out. Even then, to get pegged back at 2-2, Lyon go down to 10 men, and then all of a sudden, you're meant to be the dominant team, and then Lyon score twice out of nothing to lead 4-2. Obviously, that sets up this fantastic ending that all these fans will be talking about for years and years, but none of it should have happened. And it only happened because United just aren't very good. And Amorim is clever enough to realise that there are serious problems with that Man United team. As great as last night was, and for all the talk around the result and the ending, he will understand that he's got a huge, huge job to rebuild this team. And not just to rebuild it in the long term, but also get them in a place for the next few weeks of this season where they can go on and build on this result against Lyon and actually win the Europa League. Because there were parts of that performance last night that would be really, really troubling for Ruben Amorim. And he was very, very keen in the press conference last night to tell us that. He said all the right things about the game and how fantastic it was and the result and the atmosphere. But he said, afterwards, we have to put this into context. We didn't play particularly well for all of this game, and we need to fix it, and they need to fix it quickly.
So let's hear from the Manchester United coach and what he did say in that post-match presser.
It was a good feeling, but in the end of the game, you go to the semi-finals, but you need to win it. If you go to the semi-finals, you don't win it, it's the same feeling. So we just need to focus on the next stage and try to win the competition.
And so next up for them is Athletic Club, who are hoping to make it to the final because it is in their home stadium of San Mamés this season. Ian, you are our La Liga commentator. We know with Athletic, they're very strong defensively, best defence in La Liga. They're fourth in the table right now. Can you see United passing them?
It's a tough game, that's for certain. They could have done with something a little bit softer than Athletic Club, who've only lost 4 times. I think that's a club best all season in La Liga. So they're tough to beat, and of course they've got the threat, notably of Sunset and Nico Williams. Inyaki's not in the team even at the moment, so they'll fancy themselves to do this. And in their history, they've been to Old Trafford before when they had Llorente out front and triumphed. So there's a little bit of history there as well. I'd say, to be honest with you, that Athletic Club were probably slight favourites, given what Rob was talking about there, about how flawed Manchester United are defensively. They're letting 2 goals against 10 players last night. They turned it round dramatically, but it's still quite a fragile version of Manchester United we're talking about.
Can they do it, Shaka?
I'm with Ian in that I see Athletic Club as favourites over Manchester United. Can they do it? Absolutely, they can. We at the semi-final stage of a major European competition. By its very nature, there's supposed to be very little between the teams at this point. Also, the second leg being at Manchester United, being at Old Trafford, I always feel, even with the change of the away goals and playing the second leg on your home patch, I think has an advantage to it. But that being said, again, kind of given who Athletic have shown themselves to be all season long, they're probably thinking that there's some kind of destiny written here.
They're a team that are so inconsistent that you don't know what you're going to get. And under normal circumstances, I would agree that any team who's home for the second leg in Europe, that means that anything's possible. I tell you what, Manchester United at home look vulnerable against anybody and everybody. And again, how they pulled this out against Lyon is beyond me. I don't know. And I'll tell you, Amorim doesn't know either. Him walking off at the end of the game with a smile, clapping the fans, what's going through his head is, how did that happen? How did we do this? I can't believe we've actually won this game. So, I'm sorry, I think Athletic Club are big favourites.
Yeah, and of course the focus now is on the next game, and that next game coming up in the Premier League is against Wolves. They've just played 120 minutes, so this is Ruben Amorim on rotating his squad. He said it's not the best moment or the best season to put some kids to play because they need a strong base to really show what they can do. But in this moment, we need to do it. Sometimes you have surprises. This is tricky, isn't it, Rob? Because Wolves have run 4 in a row. They beat United back in December, and this is what we're looking at this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Amorim now is in quite a tricky position because he is well aware that his record as Man United manager is not good enough just to throw away Premier League games. Now, there's nothing riding on their Premier League games right now. They're going to finish in the bottom half. It's going to be their worst Premier League finish in the Premier League era. They're really just playing for pride. But Amorim is very, very conscious that with every poor result, with every defeat, in whatever competition it is, the pressure on him and his players and the club, the team, mounts even further. This is the first time really that we've heard him say that he's going to start rotating and resting players. You'll remember that Jose Mourinho, when he was Man United manager in 2017, in the end decided that he was just going to pick youngsters in the Premier League and rest his players for the Europa League. Obviously, they went on and won the Europa League in Stockholm in 2017. For the first time after that Lyon game, Amorim has sort of suggested that he's going to do the same. It's obviously a big game against Wolves. You know, they need the points in the Premier League, if nothing else, just to gain a little bit more prize money at the end of the season from a higher finish. But I think maybe now you'll start seeing Amorim resting a few key players like Bruno Fernandes, Diego Dallo, players who have played an awful lot of games, and just saving them for the Europa League, because ultimately it's everything is riding on the Europa League now. If they win the Europa League, it's a trophy and it's a place in the Champions League. It really can save Man United's season. If they get knocked out to Athletic Club, that would be the end of their campaign. After that, they would only be playing for pride.
You know, I think Amorim doesn't have a choice. He has to play some of the younger players. If there's any young players around the squad that he thinks have the potential to play for this team, he has to play them now and find out whether they can or can't. Because all the experienced, so-called experienced and first-team players he has, he knows that they're not good enough to take Manchester United forward, because he's had enough time with them and they haven't taken a step forward at all. They've just, at best, stagnated. So he actually is doing the right thing. And I agree with Rob that, you know, as a Man United manager, you can't sacrifice Premier League games. But he has to do that for his own good, because at the start of next season, he has to get some results. And he knows with the so-called first-team squad he has that he can't do that in the Premier League. He can't get results. So if you can bring two young guys through and they can play in the first team, then it's worth sacrificing those Premier League results right now.